Should we turn off the lights?
The lights are already off. We have the skylights.
Okay, we're on.
All right, we're live. All right. Well, let me do this first, and I can put the camera back. I want them to wait. Yeah, it's a little awkward. All right. Hello, boys and girls. I'm here at the Terryville Road Library with one of our third grade classes. I want to show you them. Let's get this out of the way for a second. Hold on. I'll come around to you. Let's go this way. Good? Everybody good? All right. All right, we got to put the camera back now because Dr. Weller messed it all up. No, it's all good. And we'll put the book there.
It's really hard.
There we go.
It's a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a good angle.
Okay.
All right, even though this is backwards, it's going to show frontwards?
Yeah, it will for everyone else. It will.
Yeah.
For them, it might be
All right,
backwards.
I'm gonna do both. I'll show you and then put it here, okay? All right. How many people here like Dr. Seuss? Me too.
Dr. Seuss has the same birthday as me.
When's his birthday?
March 2nd.
March 2nd. Happy birthday to both of you then. All right, this book is called Daisy Head Mayzie. See it up there? Daisy Head Mayzie by Dr. Seuss. So let's see what this is all about, okay? I've never read this one. Has anybody read this one?
No.
You did? Don't tell us. But it's fun to read a book you haven't read, right? You wonder what's going to happen. I would guess this is Mayzie. I don't think this is Mayzie. And you know, it's another clue. Look at the title of the book. Daisy Head Mayzie. What does she have in her hair? A daisy. Not just a flower, any old flower, right? And if that weren't enough, look at the first inside cover. Duh. A lot of daisies.
I can already tell she's got a very nice haircut.
All right, here we go. It's hard to believe such a thing could be true. And I hope such a thing never happens to you. But it happened, they say, to poor Mayzie McGrew. It happened to poor Mayzie McGrew. Room 8 she's in, huh? Looks like a school, right? It happened like this. She was sitting one day at her desk in her school in her usual way when she felt a small twitch on the top of her head. So Mayzie looked up and she almost dropped dead. Something peculiar was going on there. Look what happens. A daisy was sprouting right out of her hair. Boing. See it? Wait, imagine if that happened. You came to school, you just sit at your desk and you feel something funny in the top of your head. Next thing, boing. Let's see what happens. Behind her was sitting young Herman Butch Strudel. This looks like a daisy up here on her noodle. It doesn't make sense why it couldn't be so. A noodle's no place for a daisy to grow. Then up spoke another boy, Einstein von Tass, the brightest young boy in the whole of the class. It's a very odd place to be sprouting a daisy, but nevertheless, one is growing on Mayzie. Now, she called it her noodle. What is she talking about? Her head. That's just another expression or another word for head. You don't hear it that often. Hey, look it, cried Butch. Right here in this room, Daisy Head Mayzie. She's bursting in bloom. Now, the worst thing that can happen if you have a daisy growing out of your noodle is for somebody to notice and then yell to the whole class, isn't it? The least he could have done was ignore it.
What if a bee kept going by?
Well, that's another thing. Flowers attract bees, don't they?
Yeah, rip the daisy out.
That's not so good. Who had their hand up?
I would just chop it off.
Well, let's see what she does. What do you think she's going to do?
Just pull it up.
Okay. You think she's going to pull it out? Let's see what happens. I like guessing, right? Predicting. So let's see what happens. Miss Sneecher, the teacher, came rushing up quick. Such nonsense. Some child is playing a trick. Which one of you boys stuck that thing in her hair? Now, why do you think she blamed the boys? I'm not going to ask for an answer. You know that a daisy could never grow there. But teacher, said Butch, I saw the thing rise right out of her head with my very own eyes. Just give it a yank if you think I tell lies. So he tells the teacher, I didn't do it. Nobody did it. It popped up. If you think somebody put it there, give it a yank, give it a pull, and see if it comes out. So that's what the teacher does. Miss Sneecher, the teacher, had heard quite enough of this talk. Mayzie, hold still. Let me get at that stalk. Ouch, hollered Mayzie. Quit yanking, Butch said. You're giving her pains. I'll bet that those roots go down in her brains. Not so good for Daisy, huh? Teacher gave it a hard pull, a yank, and it didn't come out.
Use scissors to cut down.
Say again?
Use scissors to cut it out.
Okay, let's see. Maybe they'll use the scissors. Now listen what happens what the boys and girls start doing. The kids in the room started shouting like crazy. Daisy head, Daisy head, Daisy head, Mayzie. How do you think she felt?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Embarrassed.
embarrassed, sure. Like, what are you doing? I didn't make this happen. It just happened. Now everybody's kind of making fun of me now. That's no good. Miss Sneecher was puzzled. Good grief and alas, to think that this has happened right here in my class. I've taught in this room 20 years, maybe more, but I've never seen anything like this before. I'll have to report it. You'll just have to come to the principal's office and show Miss Grum. The principal just walked in when I said that. She's not Miss Grum, though. That's Miss Shelby, right? Okay. Let's see. What do you think the principal's going to do? You're a principal.
Get the scissors and cut it out.
Let's see what happens. Here's Mr. Grum. He doesn't look too happy. The teacher doesn't look too happy, and Daisy looks the least happy of all, right?
Yeah.
Well, everybody's making fun of her, calling her Daisy Head. Well, Mayzie, I was even calling her Daisy. It's Maisie's her name. Now the principal, good Mr. Gregory Grum, was a very wise man, just as smart as they come. He knew more about anyone else in this nation about long division and multiplication. He knew all the answers. Why oceans are deep, why skies are so high, and why mountains are steep. He should have the answer to this thing on Mayzie. My word, he declared, it's a genuine daisy. I've seen them quite often in fields growing wild, but never before on the head of a child. Now, what in the world ever made this thing sprout? I have no idea, but I'm going to find out. He sounds pretty serious, doesn't he? There's poor Mayzie. He doesn't know what to do. So let's see what Mr. Grum decides to do. So he's looking in a book about flowers. You see what it says there? It says flowers and then daisies. He wants to see what's going on. Let's see. Here's the book. He's looking at it. He's trying to find out what he can do. It says here, daisies grow on the land. They grow between rocks. They also grow in sand. It mentions right here, they can grow in a pot. but mention the head of the girl, it does not. So there's nothing in the book that says Daisy should be growing on the head of a girl.
Or boy.
Or boy.
Maybe she's grass and dirt.
Say again?
Maybe she's grass and dirt.
Maybe you think she has some grass and dirt in her head? Maybe she just didn't wash it. You have to not wash your hair for like 80 years to get that much dirt, right? So let's see what it says here. Daisies, it said, sometimes grow in Alaska. Also Missouri, Rhode Island, Nebraska. They grow in Japan and in Spain and in Peru, in India, France, and in Idaho too. They grow in South Boston and also in Rome. But why should they grow on this little girl's dome? So there's another word for head. What was the other word we learned? Noodle. And now what's this one? Dome. You see a dome in a building? Kind of looks like the top of somebody's head.
Like this is like.
Yeah. But why should it grow on a little girl's dome? Say, look it, said Mayzie. It's wilting, said teacher. How wonderful, Mayzie. It soon will be dead. You'll be rid of that daisy. In just a few minutes, our troubles will pass, declared Mr. Grum. Take her back to the class. So you see the daisy started to droop on her head. And she thought, and the teacher thought, and Mr. Grum thought, well, that's it for the daisy. Just going to go away. Now, what do you think?
I think it's just gonna come back.
Well, we got this much book left. I think you could be right.
Sure.
Because otherwise we'd say the end.
Again.
Let's see what happens now. Then the principal saw a most terrible sight. The daisy was dying, and that was all right. But that daisy was part of poor Mayzie McGrew. And Mayzie was starting to wilt away too. Look what's happening to Mayzie. Just like the daisy, she started to wilt. You see her bending over? She's not sitting up or standing up straight.
She ate them.
I don't know. This is a cool story. Teacher, said Grum. You know what I think? They're both going to die. Hurry, bring them a drink. This is a problem, said Grum with a frown. You take Mayzie away and you make her lie down. You lock her up right in that room down the hall. There are quite a few numbers that I've got to call. So they're worried about her. So they water her. Probably gave her a drink of water and they watered the top of her head. She looks a little better, doesn't she?
Yeah. Sort of.
Okay, she doesn't look like she's drooping so much. Now Mr. Grum's got to make some phone calls. Who do you think he's going to call?
There is mom.
Maybe mom or dad? 911, absolutely. Because they're worried she's going to die. The doctor, sure. Well, if the school had a school nurse, they'd call the nurse down, right? Everybody. It's going to be a lot of phone calls. So the first call he makes, you were absolutely right. Get Maisie's mother on the end of the line. I need her to here quickly while there is still time. He's probably talking to somebody in his office. Maisie's mom asked, what's all the fuss? Goodness to Betsy. I'll be on the next bus. I guess the principal told her what all the fuss was about, so she's going to get over there. A call to the shoe store reached Mr. McGrew. That's the dad. He answered while holding a customer's shoe. She's growing a what? I'm coming right there. And he ran out of the shoe store with no time to spare. So now mom and dad are involved. You see them?
Yeah.
And they're pretty concerned, right? They're dropping everything they were doing and they're going to get over to the school, find out what's wrong with their daughter. Guess what? Who's the next one?
Doctor.
Just what you said. A doctor should see her, the principal said, and an expert on plants like the one on her head. So we called Dr. Eisenbart, who said, goodness gracious, a child with a head that is partly herbaceous? I simply must see this. I'll come over to you. And his patient, though shirtless, came to see it too. So not only was the doctor coming, the guy that he was examining didn't have his shirt on. He ran out of the place too to go find out what's going on with this little girl. Now he said herbaceous. Herbaceous is what? What word do you see in that? H-E-R-B. An herb, like you put basil or thyme. Okay. In other words, it can grow plant life. Now, what does it say? Then Grum called Finch the florist, because he must know about flowers, right? He's a florist. Then Grum called Finch the florist, who grabbed for his shears. I'll be there as fast as my truck can shift gears. Uh-oh. A lot of people coming to see Mayzie. Meanwhile, poor Mayzie lay down on a couch. The daisy slumped down on its stem in a slouch. But the window was open because it was warm. And the sweet-smelling daisy attracted a swarm. A swarm of what, do you think? Yeah, just what you said before. Of a swarm of bees, and bees. You're good predictors in here. Daisy's looking up, and those bees have sharp stingers. Mayzie jumped out the window. What else could she do? But the faster she ran, the faster they flew. You see them chasing her? That's a lot of bees, isn't it? And they can fly faster than we can run. In the park, so boys and girls who are watching this, you see all the bees chasing Mayzie. In the park, she ran into Officer Thatcher, policeman. The bees on her heels was just starting to catch her. He said, "Wait a minute, kid. I'll be right back," and left Mayzie alone to fend off the attack. So there's Officer Thatcher. And he says, "You better wait here," and he goes away. She's all by herself now with the bees. She's not really all by herself, is she? But Mr. Thatcher returned with a fishbowl and bucket, into which went the fish from the bowl, and he stuck it on top of her head. She felt like a fool. "Kid, I'm taking you back to your school." So, see what he did with the fishbowl?
How could she breathe?
Well, if the bottom is not completely closed off, so the air can get in the bottom. Pardon? Well, they can't get her, right? They can't get to the flower now, unless they crawl up here. But I don't think they will. Who had a hand up? Yes, they did. Well, if they really go all at once, they might. But they could also sting her from here down, on her arms, on her legs, right? But what he was trying to do was put the flower where the bees couldn't smell it. So then the bees might fly away and go find, real flowers someplace. Let's see what happens to poor Mayzie. So he's taking her back to school. Principal Grum didn't know what to do. "It's worse," cried Miss Sneacher. "Much worse than we feared. The daisy and Mayzie have both disappeared." So they didn't know that she was in the park. And they didn't know that she was running away from the bees. Remember, she jumped out the window because the bees flew in. So they thought she was still in that room down the hall, right? But she wasn't. Now they're really scared. Now she's gone. Behind her came charging Mr. McGrew, chased by a customer chasing his shoe. Okay, because remember, the shoe man had the customer's shoe in his hand and he ran out of the store. So there's Mr. McGrew. He's running away with the shoe in his hand, and there's the customer wants his shoe back. Lots happening.
I see a sock.
He's just got a sock on, see it? He has one shoe and one sock. Behind her came charging Mr. McGrew, chased by a customer chasing his shoe. And you can see that. There's Mr. McGrew with the shoe, and there's the customer without the shoe. Behind her came charging, I said that, Finch the florist, Dr. Eisenbart too, Dr. Eisenbart's patient, and Mrs. McGrew. So everybody's there. Then the door opened and in came poor Mayzie, wearing the fishbowl, protecting her Daisy. So you got all these people, and then she comes in with a fishbowl on her head. Then Officer Thatcher, who looked all around, said, anyone know this kid that I found? I think everybody knows her. Mama, cried Mayzie as she ran to her mother. But Mrs. McGrew stepped back with a shudder. I think I feel faint, she just managed to utter. Stand back, yelled the doctor as he looked about. Allow me some room to examine her sprout. The doctor approached, stethoscope to his ear, but the wail of a siren was all he could hear. The doctor's checking out the sprout with the daisy on top of her head. The whole thing is a little bit, right? All they heard was a siren. And then, without warning, the door opened wide, and who but the mayor should step right inside. At acting important, there was none to compare. He was the best at long speeches, chock full of hot air. So here's the mayor walking in. And somebody, the principal or somebody yells out, His Honor, the mayor. And he looks pretty pompous, doesn't he? He's walking in. He's important, right? I promise, my friends, that if I'm reelected, the daisy on Mayzie will be disconnected. The law of our fathers is simple and sound. Daisies belong and should stay in the ground. The rest are illegal. We'll bar them from town. So the mayor is going to step in now. He's saying what that daisy did was illegal. Daisies belong in the ground, not on top of some little girl's head. Let's see what happens. Then, just as the mayor finished his talk, Finch the florist began to quietly walk, and standing directly behind Mayzie, said, I know the way to get rid of a daisy. Look at the size of those clippers he has. So there's a flower between her two ears. I'll snap it off clean. I'll snip it off clean with my sharp pruning shears. But Mayzie, she saw him and let out a screech. She pushed him aside and raced out of his reach. Look at the size of it. Look at the teeth on those pruning shears. You cut a tree limb down with those, never mind a little flower. So she got scared. She ran away so he couldn't reach her. Now, there she is outside again. See her lying on the grass. So she got out of the school again. And what she said, Mayzie ran from the school, headed straight out of town. She came to a meadow and fell on the ground. With her head in her hands, she lay all alone. Her heart, it was broken. She could never go home. She was very sad now, right? Nobody's there. They're probably looking for her, but she's by herself again. And she starts to cry. Nobody loves me. Nobody loves me, she cried. Nobody loves me. Nobody loved her. Poor Mayzie McGrew. It's hard to believe such a thing could be true. And maybe that's why. Maybe that's why then, this daisy above, when Mayzie below began talking of love. Well, you know about daisies. When love is in doubt, the job of a daisy is try and find out. Remember what you can do with a flower. They love her not. And you pull off one petal at a time. Have you ever seen that? They love her not. Don't worry, Mayzie, said her daisy. As its last petal fell, they love you. And then the stalk disappeared. So she was worried that nobody loved her, and she was crying, very sad on the ground. But the daisy stepped in, and the daisy said, watch this. They love her, they love her not. She pulled up the daisy, dropped one petal on the flower each time, and the last petal meant they love her. So Daisy now, when the last petal fell off, stem, the stalk of the daisy disappeared. Well, that's how it all happened. The thing went away, and Mayzie McGrew is quite happy today. So there's room 8 again. That's where she started off, right? That's her classroom. So let's see what happens now. Back at her studies and doing just great in all of her subjects in room number 8. And concerning that daisy, you know that it never grew out of the top of her head again, ever. Well, it practically never popped up again, excepting occasionally, just now and then. So she thought it was all over, and it didn't. And all of a sudden, what happens? Ding! Popped out again. Here we go again. But now I think she knows what to do. Do you think she knows what to do now? Let's see. And she says, and after all, I'm getting used to it. So she wasn't, it didn't upset her or make her afraid anymore, because the flower actually, convinced her that everybody loved her, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. That's why I like Dr. Seuss, because his stories take you like on a road, don't they? You wonder which way it's going to come out. And sometimes you figure it out, and sometimes you don't. I didn't know, I couldn't have figured out that the petals coming off, they love you not, they love you not. I couldn't have figured that out. But that's why I love reading Dr. Seuss. And anytime, I guess, let me see when this book was first written. I think it was a while back. Well, not too far back. 1994. But Dr. Seuss has been around for a long time. Who knows any other stories by Dr. Seuss?
Cat in the Hat.
Cat in the Hat's a very famous one, right? Green Eggs and Ham. Who else? Yeah, that's a neat one, isn't it? Right? Or left? Okay. Well, think about it. If you remember, just stick your hand up. Sometimes that happens to me too. I forget a lot of things. Then they come back. I do remember, but I don't remember the name of it. The Lorax?
No.
Well, that's another one, right? The Lorax. You're back on TV? All right. You remember? Okay. If you remember, let me know. Send me a note. Because now I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to think of another one that I like by him. Oh, The Places You Go. Okay. I'll have to look. Yes. The Grinch That Stole Christmas is another one of his, right? All right. We good?
Does everyone want to say bye?
Say bye, everybody.
All right, I'm gonna end it.
All right. Which one?